So let me introduce to you the ladies, and luckily there's a lady, there's a woman entrepreneur in tech actually, and I'm going to introduce her first. Here is Danae Ringelmann. Take the stage. Did I actually pronounce it well? This is always a stupid first question. Okay, say it properly then.
My name is Danae Ringelmann.
Danae, okay, yes. Danae. So, you started out as a banker, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so this is not, I mean, a lot of, a lot around, finance, and does it really help startups to get going? Mm-hmm. But was it also there that you discovered that finance could actually be very important?
Yes, I was actually working in finance by day, and then I was helping filmmakers and artists and people try to raise money the old-fashioned way by night, trying to help leverage my finance skills for independent artists, and it was totally failing. I was not successful at it whatsoever. Everything I'd learned in finance was not translating, and I realized that the system was really, really, really broken. So after several failures, I decided to fix it. And I teamed up with two amazing co-founders, and we started IndieGoGo, which is now the largest crowdfunding platform in the world, in over 196 countries, tens of thousands of campaigns, and millions dispersed each week.
Okay, but you started in the US, so there's your company based.
Yes, we're based in the US, but we have customers all over the world.
Yeah, okay, we'll come on that later, because we have another guest, and in the Berlin scene, they talk about him as one of the geniuses behind the Berlin success, behind what is really happening here in Europe in the startup scene. Because actually, he works at a company where some cool things are happening and where are also actually millions of customers already using their product. And this is an experience that not a lot of people have, even not in the Berlin startup scene. So, can I introduce, give him a big hand of a warm welcome, Benedikt Lehnert. You can stand over there.
Yeah, you can.
Chief Marketing Officer of Sechs Wunderkinder. So you have it on your mobile, the Wunderlist, the app. Yeah, I see a lot of people. So how many users does the Wunderlist have now?
Well, around 3 million.
Around 3 million. Okay. So tell me a little bit about your background. So how did you end up at Sechs Wunderkinder?
Oh, that was a crazy journey so far. I started studying design, and I didn't finish my studies because I founded my first company. And I had a lot to do, so I moved on and consulted a lot of big corporations in terms of what the digital movement means and how to build product in the digital age. Then I moved into biotech and healthcare for 5 years and built a new technology platform, hardware and software. I traveled the world. I worked with the Gates Foundation, trying to find new technologies to find vaccines against HIV, try to find cures against cancer. And in the end, after I found out that the pharmaceutical industry is really at least as bad as the finance industry, I thought, well, maybe this is not the place I want to end up. And I thought, okay, let's start again and go into a startup. And I looked around, and I mean, I'm from Germany. I looked around, and there was almost only one startup that really did something that amazed me, especially because it reached out to normal people, and this is Sechs Wunderkinder. And yeah, I joined in January as part of the management team. Now I'm responsible for product design and communications there.
Yeah, so you came on board after Atomico of the Skype founder Nikos Zennström invested. Yeah. Because there was, a lot to do around this task list, so to say. What do you think is so special in a task list that it can actually, revolutionize people's lives?
It's a good question. We get asked that a lot because there are millions of to-do lists out there, but we are still the fastest growing task manager in the world. There's nothing out there that grows faster than Wunderlist, and we analyze that. We started really with 6 co-founders, and we analyzed what made it so special. And it is, in the end, it's simplicity and the joy of use where it all comes down. And task managing is not that boring as it sounds, because in the end it comes down to all the things you want to do in your life, and that's what we believe. We think we can make everything a bit more efficient what you do, but also can bring a bit more joy into what you want to do. And yeah, that's what we do.
I would say, and people all across the world are disorganized, so there's always a need.
Definitely, but the organizational part actually, I think, is just a small part. You know, like the GTD gurus, like only
Getting things done.
yeah,
Yeah.
We call it GSD,
yeah,
getting done.
right. But like only a few percentage of people, like their brains work like this, and the rest is simply they want to remember stuff. They want to keep track of things, but it's not about like doing it in an efficient way. And we think we can bring this together, and with bringing more joy into the product, we think we can even bring organization to like the more creative minds.
Yeah, so you are both entrepreneurs that, I mean, really want to change something. You know, you don't accept the status quo. And I think this is also for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's like the assumption, you see something which you want to change. So the crowdfunding platform, it is not all about tech, right? I mean, you can also support a family in Kenya who has 9 adopted children, and you give them, because this is how it works at IndieGoGo, then you can get perks, so they will make a drawing for you and then you can donate some money. But can you tell me something about this revolutionary aspect through finance, through crowdfinancing? Because we all know Kickstarter, for example, but what do you do differently? Yeah.
Well, on IndieGoGo, anybody, anywhere in the world can create a campaign for anything at any time. So we're the most open and flexible platform out there, which is the big difference between maybe us and, say, a Kickstarter. They restrict their platform to only US-based projects that are creative in nature, and you have to go through an application process. So on IndieGoGo, you have an idea this morning, you can create a campaign this afternoon, and you can be raising money tonight. But the crazy thing about crowdfunding is that we empower everybody to raise money, not just entrepreneurs, but communities, organizations, creative artists, filmmakers, designers, fashion designers, everybody across the world. And the reason why crowdfunding is kind of really becoming a big thing right now is because, well, first, it has existed since the beginning of time. We just didn't have a word for it. We talk about how the Statue of Liberty, the pedestal, was crowdfunded by over 100,000 people back in the 1800s, giving 89 cents each to get the pedestal made. But the reason why it feels like it's all the rage right now is because we've had this rise of social networking, this rise of online payments, this rise of us kind of transitioning into from a transaction-oriented culture into more of a relationship-driven culture, and all of us care about how we're spending our money and where our money is going. So that's the power of crowdfunding, is people are voting with their dollar and making the ideas that they want to see come to life to life.
But it's very, I mean, good that you underline all this development, these fundamental changes in human behavior, but also in the possibility to have this infrastructure. Because, I mean, there are differences between Europe and the US also in this, right? For example, in Germany, it's, online payment and the use of online tools. The average is far lower than, for example, the acceptance far lower than, for instance, in the States. So Benedikt, have you also at Sechs Wunderkinder kind of analyzed from, okay, what is the next step for the Wunderlist? How can we expand this network of working people where you try to adapt to also to the German markets, European market, so to say?
Yeah, I mean, we are kind of a bit different from a lot of the other German-based or European-based startups because, like, right from the beginning, we had a huge success in the US.
You're right.
We have around 35% of our users in the US already. Then there's Europe, and then there's Japan.
So the question is wrong, so I have to formulate it differently. So, I mean, what you see here in Germany, but then more out of your experience as an entrepreneur here, what could you say on the differences between the US and Europe?
As a German, I think a lot of Germans are really skeptical about everything that is really high-tech and new. Especially when it comes to online security, transferring data, doing online payment. I just paid my cab when I came here with my handy, like my mobile, and it's some kind of special when you do that, and I think that's totally different in the US. I mean, when we come there and we introduce a cross-platform technology, enabling people to transfer their data, their project information, whatever. In Germany, everybody is screaming, okay, data protection. And in the US, it's simply they embrace this new kind of technology that in the end helps to make their lives easier.
And it's also that Germany and Europe, well, maybe in France you have Kiss Bank, but you don't have really like this big crowdfunding tools, for example, as well.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, actually, I would disagree. So we've been IndieGoGo launched in 2008, and we had Germans on our site very early, like in 2008, and so. Germany was actually one of our first non-US markets that completely embraced crowdfunding before we even had a chance to come here and tell you guys about it. You found us, which was awesome. And the reason why I'm here this week is because we're launching this Gründergarage competition with Google and the Entrepreneurship Foundation of Germany. And so it's a cool competition where you get training from the foundation, you get to do an IndieGoGo crowdfunding campaign and raise money to get your project to the next level. And then you can win matching funds from Google. And it's our first time that we're actually launching IndieGoGo in a whole new language. So we chose German as our first launch market, as well as offering
it is far
euros.
behind. It is far behind the States, or is that?
Germany is our 5th largest market when we're and that means that's IndieGoGo is in English and US dollars, and it's still our 5th largest market. It's our largest non-native English speaking market.
So we can now really.
So I think Germans are hard on yourself. You guys are hard on yourself. You actually are a lot more innovative than you think you are.
Well, definitely, but no, it's true. But like when we talk about the mass market, then it's totally different. Like. I talked to a guy who wanted to start a crowdfunding platform in Germany, and like basically by law, it's almost impossible for him to launch something like this here. And I think it's some kind of expression of the general mentality. We are definitely a lot harder to convince of something like crowdfunding, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So are you now? I mean, how did you overcome this legal trouble?
So we have our lawyers that are working with everything, and we don't offer ROI or investment in crowdfunding. That's because that's actually illegal in the United States. Germany actually might be a little bit ahead of the US in that regard. So we aren't violating anything. So all people do is raise money by offering perks, which can be Twitter shout-outs or thank you notes, or maybe the product that you're trying to go build, and in exchange for contributions. So there's no equity or investment stuff, which is why it's simpler.
Yeah, okay, but elaborate then on what you have seen here this week in Germany, in Berlin, in this huge festival, but also as short little presentations that you gave in the city, in cafes. I mean, what atmosphere do you feel here?
There's huge interest. There's a huge appetite to want to try it. There's a huge curiosity about how crowdfunding can actually help entrepreneurs get their ideas going, so that they can actually validate their ideas and then get extra exposure from that, so that they can actually then start talking to investors and stuff like that. So I've seen that and I've gotten a sense from that, but I've been really impressed. I think I had a really fun conversation with an entrepreneur who wanted to enter the Gründergarage competition, and she was very nervous. She's like, I only have 3 weeks to make a pitch video. That feels like not enough time. And I was like, 3 weeks? Yeah. We can do it in 30 minutes. And she's like, what? I'm like, here's my iPhone. She's like, whoa. She's like, I don't know what I'm going to say. And I'm like, well, answer these 4 questions. Why do you want to start a business? What's your impact? How much money do you need to raise, and how can people help you? She's like, well, that's easy. I'm like, well, there you go. And we filmed it in 30 minutes. She was done. So I think this idea of you have to be perfect is something that all you guys have to get over, because no one's ever perfect. You'll never be perfect, and the only way you'll even get close to being perfect is if you embrace being imperfect now and keep improving, and then maybe one day you'll get there.
Can you add something, Benedikt? Because I mean, I have no questions after such a talk, of course.
No, I mean, I totally agree on the one hand. On the other hand,
here's the German coming.
No, it's kind of, I think it's kind of what is kind of a difference between us Germans and maybe the rest of the world. And I see that, I mean, we fight a lot. We have a team of from 13 countries right now, and our CEO is German, and the whole management is German. And this drive for perfection, we fight a lot. Like every pixel, every flow, every interaction, everything. And we want to release a perfect product on the one hand. On the other hand, it's exactly what you say. The team has to learn that when you want to succeed, when you want to bring a product to market, when you want to ship.
But are you now saying this to save the German image, or I mean, because actually you agree? So why do all the products have to be pixel perfect? I mean, just launch and learn from the traction.
No,
right?
exactly.
A/B test it. Like
no, but that's only true for e-commerce.
For what?
for e-commerce. It's not true when you. I mean, what makes us special is because we care so much about every single detail. There are tons of task managers out there that have a better, feature set than we have. They offer more features, more functionality. But in the end, people feel that we cared, and we really dig to the essence of the product. And it's this perfection that people feel in the product that makes our experience special in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so launching a product simply with some features and then see where you get the traction, put the button where most of the users click, it's nice, and it performs great.
But Benedikt, I mean, there's also an argument that, for example, in Berlin, that this is also, the reason why sometimes it takes too long. And what they say here in Europe is, it's too cheap to fail. So you take all this time, and in the end, it doesn't work, because for you guys, it worked. But maybe for a lot of other startups, it really doesn't work. So as in the US, in New York or in San Francisco, they don't have the time, and they're way more successful startups in technology than here in Europe. So maybe, I mean, you were lucky, but is this really something that you would recommend to all the other guys here?
I would recommend, don't waste time, but take the time to get the product right.
Ah, that's very vague. I mean,
No,
they
but
cannot do anything
that's
with
it.
that.
I mean, it totally depends. If you want to launch an e-commerce shop, I mean, of course, you can launch it, just test it, look what performs best, and that's it. If you want to do something that nobody did ever before, I mean, it takes some time to get it right. And of course you can fail. And I mean,
how do you know if it's going to be right for millions of people without actually asking them?
I'm not talking about
or forcing them to use it. And then if you put out two features because you think they're both amazing, and you spent all this time doing two features when you could have just said, hey, these two features might be cool, let's put them out and see if everybody uses feature A and if everybody uses feature B. And if everybody starts using feature A, then you know that B is crap. So you get rid of it and move on to A, and then you put out two new iterations of A, and then all of a sudden people like the first or second iteration of A, so you get rid of the first iteration, move on. All of a sudden you've got this amazing product because it's your users that have told you what it is, versus you in your head, which is hard to guess what a million people are going to like.
And
it's almost impossible, actually.
I mean, Google and Facebook, they built great companies, huge companies, make a lot of money, but the user experience, it's crap. Look at the new Facebook app. It launched yesterday. It's crap because they do exactly that. And they have over 100 products running in the market, and they test everything, and it's crap. I mean, I totally hate it. I would delete it if I wouldn't have 600 friends writing me messages all the time. And that's the problem, that's the result. And you annoy people. Of course you can grow a business, but at least that's not what we believe. We believe we have to put something out, and we did that with our second product because it was much more complex than the first one, and that's where you have to make the trade-off. You have to know when you have to release it, because then you need the input, but before that, I would say think hard, think again, and test. Of course you have a team, you have a team, you have friends, you have family, test it.
Yeah.
And that's
okay,
it.
one final comment, because I think you agree to disagree on this. Danae,
Sure.
One last comment?
One last comment?
Yeah, on this, because...
On this point,
yeah.
Well, I think you guys know your startup better than anybody else. So I would encourage you to not wait for perfect and make the best judgment call you can with your product. And I promise you, though, that when you get things in front of eyes and you force people to use stuff, you will get so much instant feedback, and a lot of what you think you know, you'll actually realize you don't know at all, and that'll actually just make your product a lot better. So I actually encourage people to, when they put out their first prototype, I encourage you to make sure that you're as embarrassed as possible to put it out there. And if you're not embarrassed about putting out your prototype, that means you spent too much time on it and you wasted time, and that's not good practice. So be embarrassed.
That's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Danae. Thank you, Benedikt.